Hello and welcome to Celluloid and Killjoys. And for those returning, welcome back. This is our fourth installment for our Final Girl Survival Guide series. In our last episode, we built up on episode 2 about the burden of emotional labor on women and went over the social anxieties over motherhood and the myth of the perfect mother and the monstrous mother created by society's unrealistic expectations. Changing the narrative of what motherhood should look like, humanizing mothers, and providing the needed support legally, medically, and psychologically can contribute to alleviating the stigma and managing maternal ambivalence. For this episode, we will be going over the social anxieties over women aging and beauty standards. This is the final girl versus the body horror beauty. The image of beauty and perfection is constantly changing its form through hairstyles, makeup, clothing, and body shape. Trends and obsessions over beauty and image have been observed to flare up during difficult times as a way for people to distract themselves and serve, whether consciously or unconsciously, specific power structures in society. While plastic surgery has existed for centuries, it is not only more acceptable in our society, it is also more common and relatively accessible, influencing the media and its consumers of what beauty and self-image is. With the increase of visual consumption through modern media, women are bombarded with images of the youthful ideal body, many of which are digitally altered. Social media can create this pressure and leads women to self-objectify when seeing their pictures next to images of other women. Social media also exposes users to more advertisements that may promote anti-aging products, unhealthy diets and exercises, weight loss medications, promote fashion trends and clothing lines that only use models of certain body types, and depict cosmetic surgeries as desirable. The typical image of the ideal female body in the media has often been thin, in-tone white women. Research has shown that white women appear to be more affected by it as they are more likely to compare their own body if they identify the image as similar to their own appearance. In comparison, black women are observed to have more resilience against these images, but still express dissatisfaction in their bodies due to colorism in the media. There is also a double standard with aging in correlation with beauty or prime, where older men are generally considered more distinguished while older women are labeled as faded, tying their relevancy and visibility with their beauty and youth. Media portrays successful aging as looking young as possible and framing aging as a problem to solve, reinforcing the idea that natural aging is socially unacceptable. Studies have observed that the fashion industry often ignores the sexual and aesthetic desires of older women and mainly focuses on the youth and narrows the definition of beauty to exclude gray hair, wrinkles, and changing mature body types. It implies that older women are no longer interested in or entitled to self-expression, fashion, and beauty, despite them being a significant demographic with high purchasing power. Trending beauty standards are capitalized socially and professionally, coercing women to spend more money on products and procedures and make them appear more youthful and fit beauty standards, convincing them that they must look a certain way to look professional or approachable, even if it means that it barely looks like them anymore. In beauty and body horror, the final girls aren't running from mass killers, and their mental and emotional burden does not just manifest into another entity. Sometimes it's reflected physically on their body. The monster that these final girls struggle against is the societal mandate that a woman's worth is tied to her prime or youth and her proximity to the ideal female body type. The subgenre of body horror was coined by Philip Brophy in 1983 to describe how narrative media uses a show-don't-tell method of addressing society's fear of one's body or how one controls and relates to it. It also reflects the interior to the exterior, similar to how psychological horror films often create an entity as a manifestation of a character's emotions or mindset, but instead uses the human body as the monster. This is shown through dramatic biological changes of the body mutilation, and even physical alterations that often reflect the natural changes in a human body and cosmetic surgeries. While gruesome, some women found it to be cathartic watching the breaking or transforming of a body as it mirrors the internal psychological state of living under the patriarchal gaze that sets the standard of physical perfection. Body horror has the potential to subvert the narrative of women as a passive sexual object, using the body transformation as a tool for female rage, an expression of autonomy, and deviation from social norms. It embraces the messiness and imperfections of the female body that society tries to sanitize and deem as shameful. It allows them to just be. Once upon a time, a prince searched the whole kingdom for the most beautiful and fairest maiden he had danced with at the ball, using only a slipper to find her. This maiden lives with a stepmother who forces her to sleep by the cinders of the fireplace, and two stepsisters who their mother tries to marry off to the prince, no matter what it takes. Neither stepsister could fit in the slipper. One has toes too big to fit, so her mother told her to cut them off. They discovered the blood leaking from her slipper and determined she was not the maiden they were looking for. The second one had heels that just could not fit into the slipper, so her mother told her to cut them off. The slipper fit, but they discovered that she too was bleeding. Their cruelty towards Cinderella and their mother's desperation to marry them off led to their eyes being pecked out by doves. Director Emily Bletchfeld had a new take on the Brothers Grimm version of Cinderella with her film The Ugly Stepsister. Although it is a take on Cinderella, the film follows her oldest stepsister Elvira, whose stepmother Rebecca and the rest of their society believes is too ugly to win over the prince and subjects her to countless painful cosmetic surgeries. Elvira, our final girl, struggles to fight against an oppressive system that demands she mutilates herself in order to conform to society's ideal image of beauty and be worthy of standing next to the perfect lead, Cinderella. Agnes, or our Cinderella, is considered the standard of beauty and perfection that Elvira is compared to and is also objectified, and, due to the system preventing her from being socially and financially independent, is forced to compete against her sister and other girls for the prince despite her own desires. In what could have been a sisterly relationship between Elvira and Agnes, the environment that they live in had caused animosity between the stepsisters, leading Elvira to resent Agnes while everyone else favors her. Earlier in the film, Elvira is made to stand at the back of their shared dance classes with the rest of the girls that are deemed ugly, while Agnes is put in the front of class with the pretty girls, a separation enforced by the headmistress of the finishing school, Sophie. Sophie later gives Elvira a tapeworm egg so she could lose weight. Taking it is a decision that she carries with her, quite literally. The tapeworm continues to fester and grow throughout the film, causing her hair loss, malnourishment, and vomiting out more tapeworm eggs. Rebecca is also a victim of this oppressive system, and embodies how it can make women the oppressors as a form of survival. She forces Elvira to get cosmetic surgeries and even sedates her and cuts her toes so she could fit into the slipper. She also neglects to bury Agnes's father and subjects her to servitude around the household. Her cruel actions towards Elvira and Agnes not only neglects Alma, Elvira's younger sister, but also makes Alma fear that that same cruelty will be directed to her if she reveals that she started menstruating. Everything that Elvira had suffered through were for nothing, as Agnes and the prince were together in the end. Alma finally convinced Elvira to take an antidote to get rid of the tapeworm, and with it, Elvira also let goes chasing the prince and perfection. They take their mother's jewelry and escape her cruelty and control together, setting off to make their own stories. The Substance, directed by Caroline Farghit, presents a similar case within the modern setting and the fast-paced chaos of Hollywood. Elizabeth, a once high-in-demand star, was removed from her long-running aerobics show as soon as she turned 50, and quickly sees a shift in how the industry treats her because of her age. The monster she faces is her own desire to remain relevant in an industry that demands something fresh in both beauty and youth, using a black market drug that promises a more younger, beautiful, and perfect version of the user with dangerous side effects. In this way, she is both a victim and monster. The substance drug creates another woman of her body and must follow strict instructions in order to sustain both bodies. The serum is only a single use. The consciousness must switch between bodies every every 7 days with the inactive body unconscious and fed intravenously, and they must inject a stabilizer fluid daily. Sue, the new body, starts to live the glamorous life that Elizabeth wanted, while Elizabeth's social life and mental health deteriorates. Eventually, Sue develops her own personality, causing animosity between her and Elizabeth and prevents them from properly living a symbiotic life. Neglecting to switch on time will cause the original body to rapidly age. Sue continues to delay the switch schedule, causing Elizabeth to age more and more and resort to unhealthy habits to cope. The consequences of their selfish actions come to a head when Sue runs out of stabilizer fluid and switches back to Elizabeth, whose body has transformed to a deformed hag-like figure. They attempt to kill each other, but Sue succeeds, leading to her own body to rapidly age. In desperation, she tries to make another version of herself, only to create a monstro Elisa Sue, a grotesque body with both of their faces. They become the monster that is slain by the people that they had craved attention from, melting into a puddle of blood next to Elizabeth's Walk of Fame star and being scrubbed off like a spill. Elizabeth is another final girl that has not been able to overcome her monster. Like Annie from Hereditary, she had no one to help her out of her situation, and she had no one to stop her from continuing the cycle of self-destruction. Unlike Annie, who had no control over her circumstances, Elizabeth's actions that led to her end were driven by society that demanded the impossible perfection, but they were still her own actions. Elvira made her choices as well, becoming the evil stepsister archetype, but was able to gain agency because she had let go of societal pressure and bending to her mother's demands with the help of her sister who dragged her out of it. In an interview with Rue Morgue, Emily Bletchfeld has said that the motivation to make The Ugly Stepsister was to bring a redemption story for those who felt like the ugly stepsister, the ones who did not fit the ideal body image. She also wants to use this film to remind people that suffering for beauty has always been part of female history, and have them wonder what the choices that women make today as a result of that history and what we consider as free will. There were no true villains in the film, but the hero in the end was Alma. Women being forced to compete against each other instead of supporting each other to survive severs their relationships with other women. Alma wanted no part of it, making her the voice of reason. Blitchfeld is one of many female filmmakers that surged into the horror genre, making horror films about women by women. Riding the waves of feminism that shaped our way of thinking encouraged them to tell their stories of the female experience that can be horrific. Coraline Fargate is another female filmmaker that makes her own mark within the horror genre, creating works that challenge social norms and gender expectations, and explores themes of female empowerment and the complexities of human nature. Being able to cast veteran actress Demi Moore as Elizabeth unlocked the potential of how the film can portray the symbolism of being in the world of Hollywood, being in the public eye, and the idea of if you are beautiful, you will be valued. Fargate was convinced that Moore would turn it down, but the script reached Moore at a time of her life where she wanted to exist for herself and take control of the narrative that others projected on her. Sue reflects the pressure on young women in the industry that falls into the trap of hypersexualizing herself as she strives to be valued and seen, but at the cost of the public eye reducing her to body parts. It is the attention that Elizabeth wants for herself and fights to take it back. Elizabeth and Sue are essentially the same person, but similar to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and even the portrait of Dorian Gray, they portray who you are and who you're trying to be, and the conflicting personalities can be inherently violent and breed internalized misogyny as a way to survive a patriarchal society. While these films derive from fairy tales and fictional Hollywood, beyond the credits, the monsters that define a girl's face are a reflection of women's history of beauty and its lasting effects in modern time. Studies have shown that, on average, as the men get older, the age gap between them and their female marriage partners increase. This is seen to be true for men across all educational levels, although men with a higher education tend to marry women slightly younger than those with less education. Due to societal beauty standards and tying beauty with youth, men in the marriage market are seen to be searching for younger partners. In contrast, as women get older, they are more likely to remain unmarried than marrying younger or older men. In medical settings, older women have also been written off as difficult and that their concerns were simply a natural part of aging, leading to serious conditions being underdiagnosed and having multiple prescriptions to treat the symptoms, but not solve the root of the problem. Older women have also experienced healthcare providers speaking to them in a patronizing way, dismissing their concerns as a natural sign of aging, and noted the lack of clinical research involving older women as participants. One study calls for improvements in geriatric education by including special special training in medical and nursing schools to suit their health needs and dismantle stereotypes. This also includes having them be an active participant in their own healthcare and include them in clinical trials. To further deconstruct ageism and reclaim the narrative of what beauty is, involves education and intergenerational connections. It increases knowledge around aging and reduces age-related stereotypes. Having more authentic representation of older women in media, not just having them there, but showing them age naturally, and redefining beauty to include the wisdom, confidence, and diverse physicalities that come with age. More exposure of what natural aging women look like in the media helps normalize it and change how we perceive and treat older women, and also how they see themselves. Embracing aging can reframe gray hair as a sign of wisdom, experience, and professionalism. It can be used to validate authority and allow them to be judged by their competence and less of their appearance. Professional women have observed that it gave them a sense of liberation once they were no longer sexualized and gave them an active role in controlling the narrative of how they are perceived in the workplace. One study looked into 3 different types of effective interventions to reduce ageism in older adults, and they were observed to not require long-term investments: education, intergenerational contact, and combined intervention. The first kind of intervention involves programs that provide accurate information about aging that disputes myths and dismantles negative stereotypes. This counters the fabricated image of how women should be aging according to the media and societal beauty standards. The second type of intervention involves facilitated organized interactions between younger and older generations to promote empathy and humanize the aging process. The generation gap does not have to be an obstacle, but can be used as a benefit for both of them. The third intervention is a combination of the first two. Programs that implement the two can help build a bridge over the generation gap and help grow a sense of community. Different generations may find ways to learn from each other and reduce prejudices that they may have. In fact, this intervention is shown to have the strongest effect in reducing ageism, particularly with the younger generation, which suggests that early intervention is key to shifting societal attitudes. But these beauty standards do not just affect older women. Young women have also been affected by these standards, and as mentioned earlier in this episode, social media has contributed to exposing the younger generation to these unrealistic beauty expectations and making them vulnerable to public scrutiny and body shaming. Philosopher Céline Leboeuf defines body shaming as an alienating experience where one views their body through critical eyes of others and prevents individuals from fully engaging with the world. Studies have shown that psychological effects of body shaming distorting an individual's perception of their body, causing anxiety, and tying it to self-worth. Links have also been found between negative body image and eating disorders and other destructive dieting behaviors. There needs to be both individual resistance and systemic change to counter these standards. Although difficult for those who are not familiar with social media and technology, being educated on how to better analyze media images to see what is digitally manipulated, or AI, can help with reducing pressure on themselves. Advocating for more diverse body shapes, ages, and ethnicities in promotions placed in public spaces and media can break the single monopoly of the ideal beauty image and promote body positivity. Leboeuf also defines body positivity as a transition from limiting body shame to proper body pride and argues that it is more than a media trend or a push for diverse bodies, but points out how the movement focused heavily on beauty standards in an aesthetic way instead of celebrating the body beyond beauty. Body neutrality provides a middle ground for those struggling with self-image by focusing on what the body can do rather than how it looks. This also includes removing the pressure to feel beautiful and having more compassion for oneself. Body and beauty horror shows us the most dangerous weapon isn't always a knife. It's a societal standard that tells a woman she is a failure for simply existing in her own skin. We see how self-destructive it can be when women are forced to bend for the rules of men that make them to be objects to be appraised. Elma stopped Avira from becoming like Elizabeth, helping her survive the narrative, showing that it's possible that at least one person on your side can make a difference. No one can stop the passage of time, not even the fear of it. It is an idea rooted in the patriarchal system and passed down through the generations of women affected by it. The cycle and body horror stops now. Thank you for watching the 4th installment of the Final Girl Survival Guide. This one is a long one. In our final episode, we'll be diving into the social anxiety over the traumatic cycle. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss the final episode. Follow Celluloid and Killjoys on Instagram for updates, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!